Elevation Station, 132 Waldoboro Road in Jefferson, Maine. We have premium medicinal cannabis and accessories to get you on track. Elevation Station, 132 Waldoboro Road in Jefferson, Maine. All aboard! Oxford Auto Salvage, located on 117 number 6 Road, Oxford, Maine. Automobile parts, accessories, and supplies are available for purchase. For more information, contact 207-539-9673.
Welcome once again, everyone. This is Ken Minot, the president of the Maine Vintage Race Car Association, and I'm here to welcome you once again to another edition of Vintage Racers Roundtable, a production of the Maine Vintage Race Car Association and Lincoln County TV. We want to welcome you guys here as our viewers, and another installment of these programs we're putting together to give you a chance to meet some legendary racers in the state of Maine, share their stories, and take a glance back in the rearview mirror of their remarkable careers. So again, we're here at the Lincoln County TV studios. Our guests for today are three of the great racers to come out of the Midcoast and Central Maine area. We'll meet them in just a moment, but first I got to say hi once again to my co-host, Pete Silva. What do you think?
Well, this ought to be an interesting group, and I've been begging them since I've been here to be sure and tell the truth, so we'll see how that goes.
We've got some proof right here, but obviously we got some great stories sitting in front of us. So we'll start directly across from me. We have a multi-time champion, member of the Maine Motorsports Hall of Fame and the Wiscasset Speedway Hall of Fame, Mr. Doug Ripley.
Thanks.
Beside him, we have a multi-time champion as well and member of the Wiscasset Speedway Hall of Fame, John J.C. Marsh. Welcome, John.
Good to be here.
And right over here beside him, we have winning driver, crew chief, car owner, sponsor, won a special legacy award at the Wiscasset Speedway Hall of Fame ceremony last year. We have Mr. Neil Rennie. Welcome, Neil.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'll start this one off kind of the way we start off all these shows. We kind of want to start way back where at the beginning where it all started and what got you guys into racing. Whether was it family, was it interest, was it a mistake, what was, was it planned? Doug, I'll start with you. What got a steering wheel in your hand back in the first place?
My wife, she I can't remember his name. Anyway, he had a 48 Ford, and for Christmas, Louise bought it for me for $50, and the guy brought it over that Sunday morning, Christmas morning.
Wow, I never knew that. That's cool.
Yeah.
$50.
Yeah.
What was that in 1962, 61?
That was in '62.
Now, was there any history of anybody else racing in your family at all, or were you the one that started?
Yeah, my brother Dick, he won 4 or 5 features, and he built my cars. And when I went to Unity, I was like 12. A guy on Berkeyville, a big hill, he went to Unity Raceway every Sunday, and he always took me with him, and 2 of the other kids. We rode in the body. Every week we'd go to Unity.
Yeah. So who were you racing against when you first got on the track? Who were some of the big names at the time?
Johnny Rice.
I got you here in 62.
Yeah.
Some races you won, a lot of thirds and seconds. Keith Fuller, Sonny Ellis, Blackie Hillard, Bill Carlton, Fuzzy Holden. I mean, he raced against a who's who in the Hall of Fame when you started. Because remember when we did Fuzzy, he talked about running in the Bombing Division also,
yeah.
So that would have been at the same time Doug was there. So you raced against some pretty good guys early on, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
And it didn't scare you away?
No.
You took to it pretty quick?
Yeah.
It must have, because he started in 62, and it shows here him winning in 62, so I don't know.
They won the championship last race.
Yes. So your first year?
Yeah.
Jesus, that's got to be some kind of record other than the kid at Oxford there last year.
Right.
Wow.
And again, against that kind of competition as well.
Yeah, well, you look at these names, I mean, they went on to have incredible careers. And I mean, they won a lot of big races, a lot of championships. They're all in multiple Hall of Fames. I didn't really realize until I saw all this information that that was a caliber of people. You know, you talk about the bomber division, you think of an entry-level deal. But obviously all these guys were going at the same time that you did.
I lived
Pretty
right
impressive.
right in South Liberty when I raced up there for 10 years. South Liberty, right with a store there,
Yeah?
Bill Cole's store.
Right in Liberty,
South Liberty.
South Liberty. Yeah.
So who built that car for you? Who put it together? You and your brother?
It was all together.
It was already built?
Yeah.
Somebody that had been racing?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Jones from Jefferson. I don't think his first name.
I can assure you, you're probably the only guy we'll ever interview when Ken asks that question that's going to say, my wife bought me my first race car. That's incredible.
Been out there for 62 years I've been married to her.
Yeah.
And she's been right there by your side the whole time, huh?
and three boys. And Bob Knowles, he's a nice guy. He knew we was poor, and he let my kids and my wife in free
Yeah.
every week.
Yeah. Well, that's nice. And we've heard a lot of good feedback of how great a guy Bob Knowles was when he was running Unity.
I met him in the road up there one day, and he turned around and caught me. I was driving for Dragon. And he said, Doug, I want you to come up and see me sometime. Yeah, 'cause he hadn't seen me for a while.
He definitely was good for the sport.
Yeah.
Good for the people, too.
Now, we'll get back into some of your stuff, but I don't want to leave these guys hanging either. Neil, I'll jump over here to you as kind of the guy in the middle of the group. I know, John, you're kind of the younger of the three of you, but you got started in the bomber division at Wiscasset, is that correct?
Yeah.
You were racing against the likes of Teddy Polino and Kenny Lund.
Had a car that Teddy Polino drove and won a lot of races with it up there.
That was your first car?
One of them, yes.
Was it the Bluebird
car,
Special, was it?
The first car was a 57 Chevy, right?
Yeah.
And that was a red car.
Red car.
Yeah. And then he bought Teddy Polino's car. Teddy could not finish a race, but when he did finish a race, he won. But the maintenance part was not good, so he teamed up with Neil. And Neil agreed to maintain it and own it. And I think Teddy won like 13 races in a row right from the get-go when he started maintaining the car.
He did.
Yeah, and I kind of we'll get into that relationship with you and Teddy. Your actual racing career was relatively short, wasn't it?
Sure, yes.
A couple of years. But what got you going? What made you want to do it?
I really don't know, to tell you the truth.
I mean, the racetrack was already built
Built,
for
yes.
a few years, but that might have been some inspiration. It's just down the road from you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what got us started
Yeah.
in that, so.
I've got a couple of good pictures I hopefully will be able to share in this, like a picture of you sitting in front of a row of springs, scratching your head like, which one of these am I putting in this car today?
That's right.
But that must have, is that kind of channel into your interest more than driving? It was helping to put these cars together?
Well, yes.
That's what I don't know if that was the plan, but if you look at the schedule of how your career went, that's what it looks like. You raced for a couple of years, and you want to do just what Ken said, get involved in more of the technical part, making the car go.
Did, but when Teddy drove the car, we did well with it.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's no secret.
Yeah, he really could wheel a car.
Yeah, he was exceptional for sure.
Yeah.
It pretty much from the get-go, it was Teddy and it was Kenny Lund that kind of dominated that class.
I remember that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kenny Lund, Bernie Hodgkins.
Vernon?
Yeah.
Yeah, I talked with him the other night.
Did ya?
Yeah.
How's he doing?
All right, his wife's a little bit ill, but he was fun to talk to. He said to tell all you guys hello, by the way.
Yeah.
said nice things about all of you.
Yeah,
I didn't challenge it.
that's good.
Now, John, you started a little bit later than you got up to speed probably what, mid-70s?
I started
Late
in
70s?
75,
Yeah, good. 75.
and I started with, I met Neil in 74, and he was doing a job down to my father's shipyard, and we became friends almost instantly, and this was when he bought the car from Teddy, and I dabbled in lettering, and he said, would you like to letter this car? So I said, yeah. I knew zero about racing, so I'd go up to his house on weekends and nights. It took me about 2 months to letter the car.
Yeah.
Paula, Neil's daughter, she thought I was a whiz, and which I wasn't. Anyway, got the thing done, and Neil says, well, you got to come up and see us get the best appearing car. I said, I don't want to go. He said, Neil, come on up and at least see us get the best appearing car. So I did, and he didn't get the best appearing car. But the thing that I remember the most was I'd never been to a race, knew nothing about it. I walked through the gate, in the pit gate, and there's Buster Grover's car, that fastback Mustang orange,
Yeah.
and Larry Reno with that fastback Mustang. I think Jimmy Burns had one
Yeah.
too.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
And the tires were hanging out that far off them fenders. And then Buster fired up that car, and I said, I think this is like died and gone to heaven.
That's where
it was
you were
such
hooked.
an adrenaline rush.
Yeah, those were serious looking race cars, those
They were
fastback
like from Mars. And so Teddy won that day, and he won, I think it was 13 in a row or something ridiculous. I hardly ever missed a race.
Yeah, actually, it was between 2 seasons. It was 18 races in a row.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
And Dick Grayson, who won the Charger Championship that year, they called him the Flying CB, I think it was. He had the Chevy 2 for sale, I think for $500. I convinced my wife Jill to buy it and
Man, I never could get on one of those deals.
it wasn't easy, believe me. So, knew nothing. I raced and I wrecked the car, and I tell Neil, and Neil, what do I do? Well, you got to fix it. Well, where do I take it?
That was you, not knowing anything about maintenance.
What garage do I take it to? And that ain't how it goes. So here you are crawling around Buster Grover's junkyard, getting A-frames and tie rods, and so I learned, and it was the best learning experience of my life.
For sure.
And so I did win a race that year, and then Neil and I, mostly Neil, built this 67 Chevy Impala for Oxford. And
Yeah, I was going to say the majority of the beginning of your career was up at Oxford, right?
Yeah, I loved racing at Oxford because it was like 36 cars every show. Some days there was 50 some odd cars in the pit. You had to qualify, and it was just so exciting. And I was exposed to Mike Rowe. He was the hot shoe up there, and it was an adrenaline rush. And the first year I didn't do too well. I was learning. And the next year I won like 7 up there and a bunch of seconds.
You won 7 races in '77. I mean,
Yeah, and
I didn't realize you
had
raced at Oxford. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I loved it up there. And it was, for me, it was either a wrecker or a checker, one or the other. I had no, I had bad judgment, so that's how it worked.
Did your wife tell you she had bad judgment by buying
Well,
that car for you?
I did learn later that I had that, what do they call it? The depth perception. I had a bad depth perception. I learned about 30 years later. So I couldn't, I wrecked a lot of people, not intentionally, I just had bad depth perception.
I wish I'd have thought of that excuse when I was racing.
It was good. You hang around me, Pete.
Yeah, I should have.
I know Pete's got a lot of stuff to dig into here. One question I had is for you, Doug, is where did you get the nickname the Flying Chicken Farmer?
We had 42,000 chickens on the old county road.
Wow.
And I was a chicken farmer for 13 years.
Yeah. And that stuck with you, huh?
Yeah. I had another thing to say there. When I won the championship, one of the guys that wins all the time from down east there somewhere, he said, "What do you do for a living?" Benny Edgecombe spoke up. You know Benny Edgecombe, Liberty?
Yeah, I know the
He
name.
said he makes babies.
Yeah, I never knew that until when we were interviewing Fuzzy, and I asked him, I said, why did you ever sell that Ford that won so many races? I said, who bought it? And he kept saying, the guy from Rockland, that chicken farmer, that chicken farmer.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
So Doug, 47 years. That's an insane number of years to race a career. That's probably almost twice what these guys did together.
Yeah.
And successful on several different disciplines.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's a couple stats here that are mind-boggling that most people don't realize. I mean, in 219 documented starts, this doesn't count your ice winnings and stuff, 42 wins, 98 top twos, 143 top threes, and 197 top fives. Think about that for a minute. I mean, people, put that together when it's happening.
Yeah.
16 of those wins back then were at Unity, and 6 on the dirt. I thought that was pretty cool when I read it. Then I said, the heck with being cool, it's impressive. Because of the names we just mentioned, Keith Fuller, Bill Carlton, Sonny Ellis, Fuzzy
Yeah.
Holden. That's mind-boggling. Do you remember racing on the dirt back then?
Yeah.
Well, that must have been the car you just told us about then, the 48 Ford Coupe. That must have been what you
No,
were.
it was the 40 Mercury.
A 40 Mercury.
Yeah. Yellow. I bought it off of Cyanide of Len Jefferson. Like the other one must have got broke.
So you won 24 races at Wiscasset. You won at Speedway 95.
Speedway 95.
Yeah.
No.
It says documented wins here, so this guy's found a win for something up there. Did you run an enduro or something?
Speedway 95.
Yeah.
Up in Bangor.
Bingo, yes.
Probably won some of them.
Yeah.
I raced a lot of them little cheap
Then you won
cars.
at Pushaw Lake.
Pushaw Lake.
Yeah.
Where's that? Never heard of that.
Well, that must be where
Is that the
It's a-
one
yes, it says
6-hour race?
February 4th,
Paul Bunyan.
1973, Pushaw Lake, Paul Bunyan Ice Championship, 6 hours.
6-hour endurance race, huh?
In last race, I slowed down, pretty near lost the race.
Why'd you slow down? Did you fall asleep?
Because I was way ahead.
Wow.
And I went to Wilton the next week, and on the 3rd hour, I was 3 laps ahead of every car out there.
What kind of car were you driving there?
I was driving for Howard Stetson, the same one that I won up to Pushaw Lake.
Who built that? You and Dickie?
No, Teddy Hill probably did.
Oh yeah, Teddy Hill had a great career in the Sabs and running the 4-cylinder stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, he probably should be in the Hall of Fame somewheres. I mean, he won a lot of races at one time.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
they bought his cars there. He built some good cars.
Was there anything different you had to do discipline-wise driving when you were on ice?
No,
About the same as driving on dirt?
yeah,
A lot of throttle control?
yeah. A lot of fun.
6 hours.
Did you get any breaks or did you just
No
go?
breaks.
No breaks. Wow.
You have to stop and gas up?
I
Must
think
have to
so.
stop
I think
once
we
at
did.
least.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Sure is.
All right, Neil, on to you. You started in 72 in hobby class. You won
Yeah.
2 heat races that year.
I did.
And then in 73, you stepped your game up pretty good. You must have been getting the hang of it. You won a feature event, April 22nd at Wiscasset.
Yeah.
April 29th, you won at Unity.
Yeah.
And August 8th, you won at Speedway 95. I didn't know
Yeah.
you moved around that much when you were driving yourself.
Yeah. Not.
You did pretty well.
Yeah. Did.
I mean, obviously, there's not a lot about it out there, so I was
No.
kind of surprised when I saw all this. And then in 73, or right after that, is when you became a car owner.
Yeah.
So you basically raced 2 years
Yeah.
and became a car owner. Was it just... Now, I mentioned that to Jean one time, and she made us... she made the statement business obligations became a little more serious. Whatever you were doing business-wise,
Yeah.
you had to spend more time doing that, so it was probably
Right.
easier to work on somebody else's car or
Yeah.
keep a car up for them.
Yeah.
So John just explained to us how you got together with Teddy. Teddy was having a
Yeah.
hard time, and obviously you fixed that problem for him big
Yeah.
time. So
No.
when does Richard Moore come on the scene?
I don't know.
I mean, you guys were together on one of Ted. Was it the late model car then, or was it this car? I think you owned that 60. Was it a 66
Yeah.
or 7 Chevelle?
Yeah.
It would have been 1976. No, it was the year after that, 77.
Okay.
Because I ran that Chevelle right out of the box. They started winning. It was Cassidy. Actually, they went everywhere. They went Arundel, won races against late models
Yeah.
the year before with the hobby car.
Wow.
Yeah.
Remember that, Neil?
Yeah.
And that thing was a bullet. And so they hooked up with Richard the year after that Chevelle they built.
Now, Richard Moore, for anybody that doesn't really recognize the name, and I'd be surprised if they didn't, is Kelly Moore's dad. In his history, he's got more time in than all of us. My father drove for Dinah's father in the 50s.
Yeah.
Richard was around the racetrack back then. Think about the history there. And I mean, the rest of it's, between Kelly and his grandson Ryan, they've got a rich history in Maine and New England.
Again,
racing.
talking about pictures, I've actually got a nice picture with you and Teddy and Richard in front of the bus.
Yeah. The old boss.
Yeah. So how long did you and Teddy and Richard do that? Until Kelly was old enough to drive? Or?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
You guys had a lot of success. You won it, as John said, at a lot of different places.
Yeah, that was when they
Yeah.
when they did all the winning. It was he and Teddy. They won at Unity.
I remember them winning at Unity.
They won at a lot of places,
Yeah.
and they only had like $3,500 in that car.
Yeah, I remember those
It was
days.
yeah,
Yeah, phenomenal, really.
it was.
Yeah,
And Teddy was a heck of a car builder too.
yeah.
From what I've read and seen and heard from people, there was a lot of people trying to figure out what was wrong with that car, why they were getting beat, bounties
Well-
being put up and everything.
Oh, that car, they did put
Yeah.
a bounty on the first car, and Pearlie Charles
Yeah.
collected.
Yeah.
And then Joe Giroux
Joe
started.
Giroux.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that name.
Yeah.
Well, you had obviously had a great handling car and a great driver. I mean, that's a pretty tough combination.
Yeah.
It went
Teddy
off
was smooth too.
Yeah.
And he was also calculating. He was he didn't let it all go. He was consistent. He didn't want to be necessarily the fastest at the beginning. He wanted to be the fastest at the end.
Well, he certainly made it work.
Yeah.
Back to you. You've got 5 championships. Unity Raceway Bomber Championship, Maine State Ice Racing Championship, Wiscasset Speedway Late Model Sportsman Championship, and 2001, 2002, Wiscasset Speedway Flagpole Championship. Now, I missed a lot of things, but what is a flagpole race?
They have a big Michigan tire down by the checkered flag, and we go around the track one whole lap, and then the next lap you got to go around that tire, and then
Then
Go and go
around
for
the
it.
track.
And the lap is not complete until you've gone around that
What do you
tire.
mean, you do a circle around the tire? You just got to go.
Yeah, cars are coming in, you're trying to get out.
Some guys are coming in,
It's
some
crazy
guys
as a figure 8 deal.
Oh,
man.
yes.
Must be a similar deal.
And some guys knew how to, some
Well, he
guys,
must
I'll
have.
point to him, knew how to play the game to just give a guy a little nudge when he was coming in, to then dip
Yeah.
under him and take the win.
You wouldn't have
Yeah.
run into anybody.
Well, they run into me, they spun me right in the tire, Morris.
I forgot it always
Morris
goes that
Young.
way. It's the other guy.
So I went backwards down the straightaway, wide open, about 50, and I caught him, and I drove him hard. We've had some battles. But he's-
Yeah, we used to joke we'd pull a ticket from somebody in the grandstands and tell them they could watch the race from standing inside the
Inside the
tire.
circle. I didn't use that many takers on that one.
My youngest son, he's going to New York right now with his granddaughter. She's going to play basketball up at Dana.
Yeah.
He's my youngest son. He won 9 seconds with a Nova, and he said, "Dad, you drive it." So I drove in. I won. He couldn't believe it.
In a flagpole race?
No, this is a Nova street stock.
Yeah.
What was it like racing with your boys?
That was fun. Wayne got second one night. Chebuk won in the super streets, and I got third, and Darren got fourth.
Yeah. Was Dana still racing at the time, or did?
No, he wasn't racing. He got into a barrel roll up the Unity in an Enduro, and Steve Nelson caught him and rolled him over. He said, "The heck with that, I don't want to do that anymore."
No more racing.
Upside down, he couldn't get the seatbelts on out, and the gas was running.
So that Enduro must have been in '86. It said he beats his 2 sons and 2 brothers.
Yeah.
So I got to ask you about something that I mentioned earlier when you got here. Hopefully you remember a little bit more about it. I've done a lot of crazy things, but in 1970, you had a DNF. It did not finish. You wrecked with Buster Grover on the pace lap.
Yeah.
Care to elaborate on that a little bit?
I can't remember.
I don't know. I've rubbed up against people.
The statute of limitations is over, Doug. You can tell us.
I can't remember. I know in the pits we almost got a fist fight in.
Well, then it must have started right there on the pace lap, I would imagine.
Well, the race was all over, I think, when,
Okay.
well, I don't know if he got going, I got going, or I don't remember much about that. I know we had a battle in the pits there, but
Well, listen, I mean, it said DNF, so whatever was going on in the pace lap must have been pretty rough. Because you,
Yeah.
I can't remember, honest.
yeah, I believe you. I mean, God, you're talking multiple decades ago, you know.
Yeah, I raced with them a lot. Merle used to crowd me a lot.
But, Buster was pretty rough anyway, so I could see how that could happen.
Yeah, I was pretty rough too.
I believe it.
It was a different kind of. I've heard you talk about it too, Pete. That you said the gladiator mentality back then. It was.
Well, it was it's kind of a down into the trenches deal, and when people tried to take from you, you just didn't move over and let it happen for later. You kind of took care of it at the moment. I'm sure that's probably what happened on that pace lap. It probably started light, and then it just got carried away.
Yeah.
Not that Doug would get rough or anything. So John, I'm very impressed. I didn't know you even raced at Oxford. I don't know why, because my history, remembering you, was always at Wiscasset.
Right.
So I'm always impressed when something like that comes up, and then you went there and won races. What got you to go to Oxford, living in where you live?
Booth Bay. Yeah.
Booth Bay.
We said we'd go up and watch the Opens.
Oh yeah, the
And-
Getty Opens.
Yeah, and that was just so
incredible.
exciting. And so I got the fever. And the only thing, they ran those full-size cars, and that was kind of a challenge because they were just huge. And take one of those full-size cars down to Wiscasset running in some Chevelles was a little bit different.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah.
but
Well,
I just
obviously
loved it up there, and they accepted us.
Yeah, obviously you
And-
did well.
Yeah, and it was just fun.
So what made you kind of leave there and come back to your home area?
I mean, Wiscasset's your first love. First of all, Wiscasset's just such a fun track.
Yeah, for sure.
Oxford, you got to drive you got an egg under the throttle sometimes. In Wiscasset, it's hammer down, hard in and hammer down out. Just mash the gas. And there's room. You can have, as you know, an ill-handling car at Wiscasset and make up a lot of ground.
Well, the bank helped some of that too.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right, yeah. So I loved
Yeah.
it, and we went back down there, and we ran decent. And
And you got 2 walls up there too.
right, I've been in there twice too, and that's no fun.
No.
Once frontwards, one backwards.
No.
So, you guys were co-owners for a while.
No,
You weren't. No. So I guess when Ken was looking at the information, were you like a crew chief for him?
he built the car.
Okay, so that must be where Ken was thinking you
Yeah.
were co-owners,
Yeah.
that
Under
conversation.
John's porch down on the east side where he lived at the time.
Yeah, we built it out.
You guys kind of rolled with the same group, though, the Booth Bay gang. We always
yeah,
called
we're
it.
all
Yeah.
intertwined. There was Larry Oakes and
Yeah.
Alan Brewer and Neil Barter, who helped me a lot with the pro stock, and
Yeah.
we just had a great Charlie Hunt. Charlie was a great fabricator, builder.
Yeah.
So did you do that together until it was Stevie's time to race? Or did you have a gap in there for a while?
Well, that was also the period when Neil had started a business. So he was pretty much 12, 14 hours a day. So he didn't have a lot of time. So I had some help from Charlie Hunt and a couple other people, and just maintaining the car. But
So did you, go ahead.
I remember at Oxford one night we got torn down in the Charger class, and Neil was with me, and you know, they take the head off and everything, and we were, believe it or not, we were stock, and so Neil was not happy about the situation at all. First of all, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and he was not happy. He says, "We're going to drive this thing back on the trailer." I said, "Neil, you can't do that." He says, "We're going to drive it on the trailer." And he put that motor back together, and we fired it up and drove it on the trailer.
I didn't realize you were that stubborn.
Oh, he's stubborn, and I'm telling you, he's a heck of a mechanic.
So, do you go from there to helping Steve prepare to
I
race?
never really helped Stevie much, other than let her in his cars.
Really?
Stevie had a lot of help from Jimmy Sewell and
Yeah.
Timmy Merrill.
Yeah.
Timmy Merrill was like the henchman.
Yeah.
Timmy could break him.
He run with the Oaks brothers
He could
as well.
break an anvil. Timmy.
He would break anything.
Yeah.
Is that what got Stevie wanting to do it, Hank? I mean, you guys had so much
Oh,
racing going on
Stevie
around you. He
was-
must have just been a toddler when that
He
was
used to
going
go.
in.
Stevie used to go to the Oxford with me when we raced Chargers.
Okay.
And Stevie was a sponge.
I bet.
He absorbed everything, and of course he was a huge Teddy Polino fan.
Yeah,
He
I know.
adored
I've talked
Teddy-
with him about it.
Yeah, and so he was in, and he was a student, and he was a fan.
Yeah.
So
You and Gene followed McCabe around for a little bit, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're big Dick McCabe fans. I think
Yeah.
that's how I think
Yeah.
that's how I met you guys.
Yeah.
because of that.
No, Dick's a good guy.
Yeah,
He is.
yeah, that was back in the old NASCAR North days.
Yeah.
Boy, what a great era that was.
Yeah, it was.
Of course, it's always great to be hanging around with somebody that's winning the races and the championships. That makes it a little nicer.
No, we had a good time back then.
So, you and Stevie started racing in around 2013.
Yeah, I can't tell you.
Well, you did pretty well. I mean, we
Yeah.
got 16 feature wins here. We got 66 top threes, 96 top fives, and 115 top tens in 129 races. I'd call that a pretty good career.
Yeah.
Yeah, Steve actually started racing in '91.
right.
91.
Yeah.
That says
Right.
I read that wrong. It says 91 to
Yeah,
2013.
to
I'm sorry.
2013.
Yeah.
Street stock.
Unfortunately, when he had passed
Yeah,
away.
he ran
so,
good too, and he also ran at Unity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember that.
Yeah.
He was a wildly popular driver too, from
Yeah.
what I remember. You know, he won a share of races. Unfortunately, never won a championship, but always was a very popular driver
Well, kind of a
with his
people
peers
person.
and with the fans too.
Kind of a people person, anyways. I think
Yeah.
he resonated with people
Yeah.
easily.
And he almost won a championship there one year. I think Chuck LaChance might have won it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he was runner-up a couple times,
Yeah.
once in the limiteds and once
Yeah.
in pro stock. So
One night we was racing at Wiscasset, and Butler Grover's brother was there. And I went off the backstretch about 3 times. The record come down and said about the 3rd time, he says, "I thought you had a woman down here." We had some good times.
Yeah, it was a great era to race in, no doubt. All those eras. So Stevie's first car, where'd you get that? Was that something Kelly had?
one car was we bought off Kelly.
Like a Nova, probably a Nova type.
A Chevy Tour Nova.
Yeah. Well, I imagine, I remember Kelly having a 68 and 9 type Nova there. It might have come from Glines or something. I think Richard maybe bought a car from Glines when Kelly started.
Probably did.
Mickey Glines. And,
Yeah.
nice looking car. I think they raced at Oxford. And they went to Unity with that also too. But is that the car you guys ended up with for Stevie? Like a Laughlin car?
I can't remember too much about that.
Yeah. Well, that would have been a late model type car. So that would have been a heck of a class to start in. So
The first,
do you remember
he
what
started as street stock, and it was a Camaro.
in a Camaro?
Yeah, but I don't know where it came from. Do you? Was it Charlie Colby?
Well, there were a lot of
Colby?
Camaros around back then. That was a popular car for those divisions.
Yeah.
He did. He started off good too. He ran good.
Yeah.
Oh, if you don't mind, I wanted to jump back over to Doug for a minute because I've introduced you before as the patriarch of one of the most famous racing families at Wiscasset, and you guys are synonymous with the number 9 or the number 09. Where did that, why that number? It seems to have stuck with everyone in the family.
Yeah, like the 09.
You were 9 when I met you.
Yeah, I was 9, then I didn't race for 3 months, and Chucky got my number away from me, and then he went back to 38. So
Chuck LaChance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's always a 9, 99, or 09, or
Yeah.
I didn't know if there was any significance to that number.
No, it's 99 is what I had for the last 10 years. as I raced.
Jack had 99 too. You drove Jack Light. You drove for him a little bit, didn't you?
I drove him for 9 years.
Really?
Yeah,
That was a good ride, too.
Is that where the 99 came from Jack?
Maybe. Maybe.
And you're also, I thought I probably ought to dig into this because anytime anybody mentions Doug Ripley, one of the stories that always comes up is, oh, I remember that wreck. You've had a couple of the most legendary wrecks in the Wiscasset Speedway history, like unfortunately spending a few days in the hospital style wrecks. And I know I've got a picture of one of them. I'll make sure they share, but talk us through some of the stuff you went through on that racetrack.
Didn't I tell this? Dale,
You were setting out to pass somebody.
Was it Dale Tyler?
Oh yeah, Dale Tyler. He was slow, so I went to pass him like that. We didn't have mirrors, and we didn't have no radios. And Ken Siggers was up here when I started to pull out by Dale like that in the corner, and Ken Siggers was right here. When I went out, he just swung me right into the wall there.
That looked like a half a car, didn't it?
Yeah, it looked like they cut the
The motor
car
was laying on the hot top there, I guess. I didn't see it, but I was out. I broke my jaw, damaged kidney, slight head injury, unconscious 14 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had one at Unity, hit that down cement header up there. Earl Jones got on the inside of me and put me in that cement wall.
There was a cement, you see well covers, wooden well covers. Unity had one made out of cement.
Yeah.
Thick cement. They say it about knocked the crankshaft out of the motor when you hit that. You hit so hard.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine that impact.
Had that 55 Ford Crown Victoria, black one.
And you went to the hospital on that one too,
6
didn't you?
days.
6 days. And evidently that didn't smarten you up enough to quit racing.
But I mean, the safety equipment back then really wasn't too much as far as safety. It was more just to get you through the race,
They
wasn't it?
barely even had shoulder harnesses back then, did they? They might have had them by then, probably.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
And I used to race at Oxford in the 200s, back when they had the 200s instead of the 250s.
Yep.
Bill Bailey got the 8th. Steve Langley got 9th, and I got 10th that 1 week. And then we raced the little guys up there. We got a top 5.
That's pretty good.
100 lap or 200 lap, I think it was.
The 250 did start out as 200 laps.
Yes, it did.
So that's pretty impressive. That's tough competition.
Yeah, we had a good little car there, and I got a top 5.
So that would have been the 70s? Probably. Because prior, in the late 60s and the early 70s, that was the Getty Opens they used to have back then. Do you remember those?
Right,
Or are
yeah.
you too
Yeah.
young?
I'm too young for that. So, sorry. At least I'll make you think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No.
Well, and I'm going to kind of swing over to
Sure.
John too with, when it comes to injuries that people remember. Unfortunately,
God, yeah.
you had a pretty serious one too that kind of went undocumented because it happened in practice, right?
Yeah.
You were waiting to come onto the track and
No,
no?
it was story. We were practicing and we were over in the 1 and 2 turn, and it was one of the few times that I was ever able to run with Stan. And so I had gotten into the 1 and 2 almost beside him, and they let a car out of the pit, and I cannot tell you what happened after that.
Yeah.
I got amnesia from always. But
You broke your neck, right?
yeah, and Neil said that he heard that crash. You know how it is when you hear a bad one? And he said that was one of them.
Yeah.
So broke my neck in 2 and 7, and they could not believe that I was able to even feel my feet. It was a miracle.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so I was in the hospital a few days. And
That would have been early
it was the
93?
year after
The year after you won the championship?
after we won the championship.
93?
Yeah, and I always felt shortchanged because, we hadn't won a race when we won the championship, and I always thought we didn't get any respect.
Yeah.
And
'Cause
so my
you
goal,
were racing Kenny Wright that whole
Kenny
time.
and Fippen and
Yeah.
Marty and
Yeah.
Jimmy Burns, and there was a whole host of them. But I felt accomplished that year because they all wanted the points.
Yeah.
Because they were paying good money. They were paying $5,000 to win, which is a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and plus I owed $5,000 on the car. So,
There's motivation.
so there was motivation. So I felt kind of shortchanged because I wanted to prove that we could win races. And I think we, it's easy to say now, but I think we were on the verge of winning some
Yeah.
races.
and you were out of commission for a few
Yeah,
years.
and I was bitter too.
Yeah.
Because I felt I was shortchanged, and I loved racing.
Yeah.
Psychologically, it was awful. I stopped littering cars because I just could not stand having them around. I couldn't stand them when they fired them up and you smell that fuel. None of it.
Yeah.
And so if I saw a car going to a racetrack, pulling a car to a racetrack, I was so depressed I can't even tell you.
Yeah.
So it was...
It was really inspirational, though, to see you overcome your injuries and not only be able to live a regular life, let alone be able to get back on the racetrack. And the night you won a feature, after what you had been through, you had a lot of the crowd in tears that night.
Well, we didn't win. That was third
I thought
place.
you did
That was
too.
third.
Oh, it was a podium,
That was
wasn't
the
it?
third
Okay,
place.
Yeah.
that makes sense.
But that was big because just, coming back and everything.
Right,
and-
you wanted to at
and
least finish racing
let
on
me-
your terms.
Neil let me, they had 2 cars, and he let me run 1 car, which I'm grateful for that. So it was good, and I was able to get. We did build a pro stock the next year, which I had no business doing. I didn't have the money, and I just was trying to reenact something that was gone.
Well, that's understandable. Through this point of depression and being pissed off, was there ever a point that you just said, one day it hit you in the face that you shouldn't even be walking?
Oh
And
yeah.
then say, maybe I'm mad for no
Well-
reason here?
well, not only that-
and have a different appreciation of it all?
Absolutely, and not only that, I had a stroke.
Jeez, didn't know that.
My vertebrae came over and crushed all the veins that carried my blood to
God.
my head. Most people have 4. Miraculously, I had 5. I had 1 extra that carried the blood to the head. That was a miracle part of it.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is a miracle.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Being alive
Yeah,
and
I
walking.
mean, God has so blessed me, and plus, He gave me 17 years. I raced with great people.
Yeah.
I love the people, Fippen and all those guys. They were just awesome. Kenny Wright, they were all
Yeah.
just good people.
You and Doug were basically both blessed. I mean, Doug,
Yeah.
anything that, either one of those accidents could have been the end of you, really. In that era, back to your point about safety
my-
equipment.
I
Yeah.
broke 5 and 6. They said if I'd have broke 7, I would have died. But he just said he broke 7 and he's still living.
2 is the bad one.
7 and 2.
2 was bad.
Yeah.
Because
Oh,
the next
2?
one is 1.
Yeah.
It's amazing these two guys are even here telling us
Yeah,
a story.
and you know, nobody wanted me to go back racing. And so I asked my my doctor what he thought about it. He says, look at it this way. He says, you got 2 that you'll never break again. He says, so your odds are better than most. So.
The way I always looked at it too was kind of looking what happened to you back in the face and saying, okay, when I'm going to finish racing, I'm going to finish on my own terms, not because of an accident.
Yeah.
That's kind of the vibe I took from it all that night when you returned, and
was,
even just a podium was a victory in our
absolutely.
eyes.
Kind of the last laugh.
Yeah. And Neil was instrumental. I mean, he gave me a great car too.
Yeah. The more I go over this history, you and Neil have a long history together.
Oh yeah.
From basically the beginning
Yeah, he's to blame.
to this point right now, today.
I got to tell you one quick story. I used to drive by his house before I knew him, and on Sundays they'd be loading the car, and he had that 57 or whatever it was, and it was a piece of junk. And I'm thinking, I know nothing about racing. I thought they must be taking that thing to the junkyard. So I go back the next Sunday, and they're loading the same car on the same trailer. I'm saying, junkyard must have been closed. So it was about a year later that I met him and I found out that those were not junkyard cars.
They don't have to look pretty to go fast.
No.
So.
Was it dented up when you bought it, or did you make it like that?
No, it was pretty good.
I'll make sure they get the picture of it. It was a pretty ugly car, but it went well.
I see. So I didn't realize until I got this information that you and Steve won races at Oxford too. That always impresses me. You know, I was gone so many times. You know, when I come back, I guess all my memory is one-dimensional, or it's like remembering everybody from one track, which in this case was Wiscasset.
Right.
We had a lot of good times at Oxford.
So did you stop going to Wiscasset and go there, or was it just, were you on a different tour or something?
I don't know.
No, you guys ran the ACT tour a little bit too, didn't you?
Yes.
ACT.
Yeah. They were in pretty respectable on that too. They had good finishes.
But
Stevie got hooked up with the Wharfs there and won some races in their cars.
Matt Kensett drove your car in a 250 too, didn't he? Stevie's car.
yeah,
That was a Wharf car.
That was a Wharf car?
Yeah.
Is that what I thought it was? Did
Yeah,
Stevie crew chief
was
it?
the crew chief.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I've seen video of Stevie as the crew chief on that car.
Yeah, I know we had fun doing that.
yeah.
Let's go back to you being the car owner, John. I mean, I never knew any of this. So you bought a car, and you ended up having Robbie Crouch drive it in the 250. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah.
What brought that about?
It was a V6 car, which was a nightmare right from the get-go.
Well, I remember when the toothpick guys bought that for Billy. I was on the Busch Grand National tour,
Right.
and it was a V6.
Were you racing against that? No, you
Yeah,
were.
it was a Dillon car with a Ruggles motor in it.
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
A Wagner.
Wagner, yes.
Yeah. And we were way out of our league. I mean, we just weren't equipped for it at all. And so I was frustrated and could not get the thing to go. We'd take it over to Gleins's, and it was just a nightmare. Thing would go for good for a while, and then it was not consistent. So Crouch got hooked up with NRP,
Yeah.
and they pointed him our way. There were some things in that car that were not legal, and they were going to outlaw them the next, something to do with the A-frames and what have you. So they figured with Crouch and that team, they could make that, they could figure it out. And they came up to my shop for a week, and they massaged that car. And I learned a lot about professionalism. And so went out, and the car still was not fast. And
Did you make the race?
Oh yeah, he finished 7th.
Oh, wow.
And honestly,
Nice story.
yeah, but he
Yeah.
would have finished 4th, but Tommy Houston, with 2 to go, he wasn't going by Houston. He made sure he was wide. So, but 7th was quite an accomplishment.
I always would have finished better too if it wasn't for the other guys.
Or
But that's impressive.
Maybe a few more laps.
But like you said, I mean, you were with a professional, an accomplished race
they were-
car
they
driver
were-
with incredible achievements.
They really
and,
were great,
yeah,
and Robbie was consistent.
Yeah.
He wanted to be running the same at the end than he was at the beginning.
Well, he was always an extremely smooth driver.
He
and
really
all the
was.
names you
He
mentioned
was.
have good knowledge
Yeah.
too. They were,
Yeah.
so now you moved down the road a little bit more, and you were going to do another deal in '94 and have Joel Tozier and Billy Clark drive. What was that about?
Yeah, I can't remember how that all worked out.
Was that the same
It
car,
did-
or was
we
it
didn't have
something-
enough money.
Well, that's
for one
common.
thing.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
understandable.
Yeah.
But I was surprised. Billy Clark, I mean, you bought the car from him, and I
Yeah.
can see that, but what brought Joel Tozier into the equation?
Joel had done work on the Pro Stock on occasion,
Okay.
and actually he took that Bush car and cut it up and made it into a Pro Stock. It was the fastest car I ever had.
And Joel did really well with those cars back
yeah,
then.
yeah.
Anybody
He-
that came around him, I mean, they're still running well when he's around them.
Yeah, yeah. He was a wealth of knowledge, and that was back when he was in Unity, I think.
Probably. He was a Unity area guy. He was
Yeah.
working for Stan. And,
Right. He had split with Stan and had moved down the road.
yeah.
Yeah, I was actually, since we're talking to John, there's one more thing. I didn't want to miss this opportunity. One thing you're known for, too, that some people may not realize is you're a painter by trade.
Right.
You do beautiful sign work for a lot of businesses in the Booth Bay area. You became famous for some beautiful hand-painted race cars back in the 90s as well.
Yeah, I was more well known for my painting than my skill
Yeah.
as a race car driver, but I loved it.
I know
And-
you and Bob Orr were both putting out some amazing stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I loved it. And what I loved back then is it was pretty much your palette. You know, you didn't get micromanaged like you do today. And they didn't have wraps and all that stuff. So they came in and gave you a blank canvas. And I enjoyed, you know, I loved it when somebody got a best appearing car or something.
Yeah. How did it make you feel to put all that effort into it, and a week or two worth of work, and then they ruin it in one night?
I still tell Jason Oakes, be careful.
Yes, Jason's still driving one of your nicely painted
Yeah, I remember
cars.
Buster Grover brought one down to me once when he was racing the limiteds at the end of his career, and the thing was orange, and that thing had more dents in it. And he says, "I'm depending on you to straighten out those dents with your lettering." Well, you know, I got done, and the thing actually looked pretty good with straight, you know, lettering and what have
Painted
you.
up to look like a golf
I don't
ball
think he
with
got a
the
best
dimples in
looking
it.
car or anything.
One more quick question.
Yeah.
I know we're running out of time. I saw this Grand Marshal at a Busch Grand National event. Was that at
Yeah, it was
Wisconsin
the
when they
next
came?
year after I broke my neck.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah,
I know
93,
that.
94,
Yeah.
yeah. Yep.
And you became a race sponsor at Wisconsin.
Yeah, minor.
Yeah, 92.
Yeah, but I love Wisconsin. I mean, and we were talking to Doug. I mean, what they've done there is just
Yeah, well, it's like home court for all you guys.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Doug, who built most of your cars? You and your brother?
Yeah. He wouldn't let me do much. He'd let me clean the parts.
Well, he built cars for
Dickie was a great car builder.
He built
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
for your kids too, didn't he?
He had kids, yeah. He had 2 girls and a boy.
But I mean, he built some cars for your sons when they were racing, didn't he? There was one there that looked like it had a chopped roof on it. I can remember that
Yeah.
at Wisconsin.
Yeah, Dick
Yeah.
built some good cars.
Yeah.
And he could build motors. Done about
Yeah, he
all
was
my
tough.
motors.
I mean, he was a classic old schooler, could do everything.
And he was an
Like we had to do it
He
when we
was an
started, or
excellent
we wouldn't have
brother,
been able
too.
to do it.
Hey, he'd be there the next night. He would be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he loved working on them.
You miss it?
Yeah, I can't get into them though.
How about you, John?
I want to get in and draw a Unity, but Christ, I ain't going to be able to now.
We'll have to put you in a halo to keep you safe. What do you think, John?
I'm happy with what I had. I'm so blessed I can't even
Yeah.
tell you. The race, and I raced against some good racers too back in
Yeah.
the day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite a list
I
of.
really didn't. I never considered myself on their par. I mean, I raced against Bobby Allison at Oxford, and the modified guy, Bugsy Stevens.
Yeah.
I
Bugsy.
love racing. I raced with Bugsy all one night.
Yeah.
We were racing middle of the pack.
Where was that, at Oxford?
Yeah,
Was that one of those opens?
yeah, and what a thrill.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
I understand that. When I went down south, we used to drive down and watch the races in the 70s. And Ray Hendrick was always my hero. You were in both divisions when you had the big races at
Yeah.
Martinsville. So we were running a bush race in 1982 at Langley Field. He and I pushed each other around for 200 laps for 4th and 5th. Here he comes walking up pit road. I thought he was going to kick my butt. Reached into a pocket and pulled out a can of beer for each one of us and just started talking. I would have preferred to win the race,
Yeah.
but I don't think that moment, back to your point about the thrill of that moment,
Yeah.
that person, I wouldn't have swapped that for anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a great guy. It's his birthday today or tomorrow. I think or yesterday. I think he's 89 years old or something. Bugsy Stevens.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a heck of a racer.
Yeah.
Gentleman, too.
What about you, Neil? Do you miss it all?
Do I miss it? Well, I'm glad I don't do it anymore.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think Father Time kind of forced that, but
Yeah.
I mean, I miss it.
No,
I don't know if I miss all the work.
we had a good time.
Oh, yes.
Good years and stuff.
Well, all three of you guys, not only do you have a good time, you had a lot of success in a lot of different areas and arenas and different divisions and
Yeah.
Yeah.
covered a lot of different aspects. I didn't realize until I got this information how many different things you did. Obviously, you just wanted to race, and whatever was there, you went and did it.
Yeah.
And obviously did it pretty well. You keep downplaying yourself, but you did all kinds of
Well,
things.
no, I mean,
And
I watch these shows, and this guy's won 80 races, this guy's won 10 championships, and I'm thinking, what am I even doing here?
You've had a huge impact on this sport. I've told you, and
Good point.
he was.
That's a great point.
John is a very humble guy, which is
certainly is.
which is admirable. But you've had your hand in, and this is what this show is about. It's not just guys who held the wheel. It's guys who built cars and painted cars and things like that. So you've had your impact in this sport for sure.
Well said. None of you, no matter what stage you were at, have ever stopped supporting the sport to some degree.
No.
All of you. Whether it was for yourself or supporting family members or other people around you, you've done a lot to keep it going.
I was telling at the beginning when we were here, when Doug started kind of phasing out of racing, I'd always remember you while your boys were racing. You'd be standing over in turn 2 with a broom ready to help clean the track, or you were helping to run the wrecker, or whatever you could do to help keep the show going. So
Yeah.
Quickly. I've got 2 teeth missing because of you.
Who?
Yes.
only 2?
You get some new ones?
They weren't fighting, we were repaired. Remember the times when we used to go to Speedway 95 on Wednesday nights? They used to have those opens. You and Ralph got into it. Nason, I don't know, we were running 9th, 10th, and 11th. And the whole you were driving one of those big Fords, and the whole right front hub, tire, and wheel came off. The old 8-lug hubs with a heavy wheel and an M&H Racemaster with a tube in it, probably 90 pounds, and here it comes. I mean, you were up on your rear bumper, the car was straight in the air, and I said, that's just gonna bounce off the bumper. It hit the front of that car and it pushed the frame back on my car, and it snapped my mouth together so hard it broke my teeth.
Wow.
So you owe me some dental work. That's my parting shot, Doug.
Well, as we're getting close to finishing up here, I wanted to thank you guys for giving us your time and trading some good stories. I'd like to go around the table here as we usually do and give you guys an opportunity just to thank any special people that were instrumental in your career from start to finish. So Doug, I'll start with you.
I don't know. I think I had my most fun up at Unity. Bob knows that track. I love that track.
Yeah.
I think you better thank the woman in the other room for buying you that first race car.
She's been thanked already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John, how about you?
Well, of course, Neil. I don't know whether to love him or hate him because he cost me so much money over the years. And he also got me addicted, worse than alcohol.
Yeah. It's an
And
addiction.
Larry Oakes, of course. Larry was always a great friend. And
Nice guy, Larry
yeah,
was.
Larry
Yeah.
was the best. And
Yeah.
Alan Brewer. And
We had a lot
Neil
of good.
Batter, who was kind of my crew chief there at the end, he never did anything to hurt you. He was always, you had a lot of confidence in him. He did just a great job. And
Yeah.
we never had any, there was never any harsh words all the time. We just enjoyed being together, and it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Neil?
Same thing. It was fun. We had a good time, and
Jane has been right there with you the whole time, I imagine.
yes, she's known as the dream crusher. If I have a good idea,
Listen,
she
this
does.
is going to be on YouTube, you know. She's going to hang you when she hears this.
It's all right. I'll take my chances.
Well, guys, thank you very much for your time. This has been
Okay.
really neat.
Yes.
Pete, thank you again as always.
Back at you, and thank all three of you. I
Thank
enjoyed
you.
hearing your
It
stories.
was
I'm glad
fun.
you came.
Yeah, me too.
So once again, we want to thank you guys for joining us for another edition of Vintage Racers Roundtable. Again, if you want to find out more about the Maine Vintage Race Car Association, go to mainvintagerace.org. That's our website. You can find out more information on how you can support us, become a member, and help us with our mission to help preserve and present the history of racing in the state of Maine. So once again, thank you to Doug Ripley, John Marsh, Neil Rennie, and Pete Silva, the folks here at Lincoln County TV. We'd also like to thank our sponsors for helping to put on this show as well. We want to thank Elevation Station and also thank Oxford Salvage for all their support today on Vintage Racers Roundtable. Thank you.
Elevation Station, 132 Waldoboro Road in Jefferson, Maine. We have premium medicinal cannabis and accessories to get you on track. Elevation Station, 132 Waldoboro Road in Jefferson, Maine. All aboard! Oxford Auto Salvage, located on 117 number 6 Road, Oxford, Maine. Automobile parts, accessories, and supplies are available for purchase. For more information, contact 207-539-9673.